The amber liquid rippled in the crystal tumbler as Olivia Bennett raised it toward the ceiling lights. The basement of Tyler Rothman's house throbbed with music, crowded with seniors celebrating their impending graduation. The air hung heavy with expensive cologne, perfume, and the unmistakable scent of alcohol. "To surviving senior year," Olivia called out, her voice carrying above the music. A dozen glasses and red plastic cups clinked against hers, alcohol sloshing over eager fingers. "And to parents who think we're at Emma's study group," added Tyler, prompting laughter from the circle of friends. At 18, Olivia commanded attention without effort. Swim team captain, honor roll student, locked for Northwestern University in the fall. Her dark hair fell in perfect waves past her shoulders, her confidence radiating like heat. She tossed back the whiskey in one practiced motion, suppressing the grimace as it burned down her throat. This was hardly her first drink, though her parents would be shocked to know it. From across the basement, Emma Weiss watched her best friend with a mixture of admiration and concern. Unlike Olivia, Emma approached the party tentatively, nursing the same cup of punch she'd accepted 30 minutes earlier. She'd come only because Olivia had insisted, their last semester together before heading to colleges on opposite coasts. "She's something, isn't she?" said a voice beside Emma. Michael Chen, senior class president and Olivia's on-again, off-again boyfriend, leaned against the wall. His eyes never left Olivia as she poured another drink. Emma nodded. "She's always been the fearless one." "Fearless or reckless?" Michael sighed. "That's her third whiskey in an hour, plus whatever they were drinking before we got here." "She knows her limits," Emma replied automatically, though uncertainty tinged her voice. Lately, Olivia's limits seemed increasingly elastic, especially since her acceptance letter from Northwestern had arrived, releasing the pressure valve on 4 years of relentless academic striving. Across the room, Olivia felt the pleasant warmth spreading through her body, her thoughts growing comfortably fuzzy at the edges. This feeling, this lovely floating liberation, had become her favorite escape. From her parents' expectations, from the looming responsibility of college, from the nagging emptiness she couldn't quite name. The first time she'd truly gotten drunk had been almost a year ago, after the junior prom. The experience had been a revelation, how completely the alcohol had silenced her perpetual inner critic, how it had transformed her from the girl who overthought everything into someone carefree and uninhibited. Since then, she'd found increasingly frequent reasons to indulge. Celebrations for victories, consolations for disappointments, and eventually no reason at all beyond wanting that feeling again. "Hey, pacing yourself?" Tyler asked, appearing at her side with a bottle of expensive bourbon, swiped from his father's collection. Olivia grinned, holding out her glass. "Why start now?" 2 miles away, Catherine Bennett was folding laundry when her phone chimed with a text from Emma's mother. "Are the girls still at your place? Emma said she'd be home by 11. Catherine frowned. According to Olivia, the study group was at Emma's house. She typed quickly, "Olivia told me they were studying at your place until midnight." 3 dots appeared, then, "Oh no, I think we've been given the slip." A cold weight settled in Catherine's stomach. She called Olivia's phone immediately. It went straight to voicemail. She tried Emma next, with the same result. "David!" She called to her husband, who was working in his home office. "The girls lied about the study group. I need to find Olivia." David Bennett appeared in the doorway, looking concerned but not alarmed. "They're probably just at some friend's house. It's the end of senior year, Kate. Remember what that was like?" Catherine's jaw tightened. "That's exactly what worries me." Unlike her husband, Catherine had noticed subtle changes in their daughter over the past year. Olivia's weekend sleepovers that left her exhausted rather than refreshed. The occasions when she came home with clothes smelling faintly of smoke or alcohol quickly explained away. The mouthwash Catherine found hidden in Olivia's backpack. Individually, each incident seemed minor, typical teenage behavior. Together, they formed a pattern that increasingly troubled her. "I'm going to call the other parents," Catherine decided, already scrolling through her contacts. After several calls, Tyler Rothman's name emerged as a possible location. His parents were away for the weekend, a fact apparently well known among the senior class. When Catherine couldn't reach Tyler by phone, she grabbed her car keys. "You're overreacting," David insisted, though he reached for his jacket. "But I'll drive." "She's never lied to us before," Catherine said quietly as they backed out of the driveway. "Not about something like this." David kept his eyes on the road. "She's 18, Catherine. Testing boundaries is normal." "This isn't about boundaries. Something's been off with her lately. I can feel it." They rode in tense silence to the Rothman house, an imposing colonial in the most exclusive neighborhood of their suburban town. Even from the street, they could hear the bass of music pulsing from within. Cars lined the curb, some parked haphazardly on the manicured lawn. "Looks like more than a study group," David admitted as they approached the front door. No one answered their knocks, so David tried the handle. The door swung open to reveal a house in full party mode. Seniors spilling from room to room with cups and bottles. Music blasting from expensive speakers. Catherine pushed through groups of teenagers, many of whom she recognized from years of school functions and swim meets. Some looked alarmed at the sight of Olivia's parents. Others seemed too intoxicated to care. "Where's Olivia?" she asked each group, growing more frantic as she moved deeper into the house. It was Emma who finally appeared, eyes wide with panic. "Mrs. Bennett, thank God it's Olivia. Something's wrong." Catherine's heart plummeted. Where is she? Emma led them downstairs to the basement, where a small crowd had gathered around the bathroom door. Michael stood outside, pounding on the locked door. "Olivia, open up!" he shouted, his voice cracking with fear. Catherine pushed through. "Olivia, it's Mom. Open the door right now." When no response came, David shouldered past the teenagers. "Stand back," he ordered, then threw his weight against the door. It took 3 attempts before the lock gave way. Inside, Olivia lay crumpled on the bathroom floor. Vomit stained her shirt and the tiles beneath her. Her skin was ashen, her breathing shallow and irregular. "Call 911!" Catherine screamed, dropping to her knees beside her daughter. She rolled Olivia onto her side, checking her pulse, present but weak and erratic. "Olivia, Can you hear me? Wake up, baby. Please wake up. Olivia's eyelids flickered but didn't open. The sweet, sour smell of alcohol and vomit filled the small bathroom. Emma hovered in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. She was doing shots. They were having a contest. Then she started acting weird, slurring her words. She came in here about 20 minutes ago and locked the door. How much did she drink? David demanded, his lawyer's composure cracking as he looked at his unconscious daughter. I don't know, Emma sobbed. A lot. And I think she might have taken something too. Pills, maybe. Tyler has his dad's prescription stuff. Catherine's blood ran cold. What pills? Emma, this is important. I don't know, Emma cried. She didn't tell me. She just said it would enhance the experience. The wail of sirens approached outside. David went to direct the paramedics while Catherine stayed with Olivia, whispering desperate prayers into her daughter's ear, begging her to hold on. As the paramedics rushed Olivia out on a stretcher, Catherine caught a glimpse of the other teenagers. Their shocked faces, their party suddenly transformed into a nightmare. Some were already sneaking out, afraid of consequences. Others stood frozen in horror, the reality of what alcohol poisoning actually looked like, shattering their adolescent sense of invincibility. In the ambulance, Catherine held her daughter's cold hand as the paramedics worked frantically around her. Olivia's blood alcohol level was dangerously high, complicated by whatever pills she might have taken. Her breathing grew more labored, her pulse more erratic. Stay with me, Olivia, Catherine pleaded. Please, baby, stay with me. But by the time they reached the hospital, Olivia Bennett, swim captain, honor student, Northwestern bound, had slipped away, another statistic in the grim tally of alcohol-related teenage deaths. 6 months before that fatal night, the warning signs had begun in earnest. Mom, I'm sleeping at Emma's tonight, Olivia had announced on a Friday afternoon, dumping her backpack by the door. Her parents are making that pasta I like. Catherine had looked up from her laptop, noting the overnight bag already packed and ready. That's fine. Tell the Weisses I said hello. Later that evening, Catherine had called Emma's mother about an upcoming school fundraiser, only to discover that no sleepover had been planned. Emma was actually staying at her grandmother's for the weekend. When confronted the next day, Olivia had been immediately contrite. I was at Zoe's house, she admitted. Her parents let us have wine with dinner. I didn't think you'd approve, so I lied. I'm sorry, Mom. Catherine had been disappointed but not alarmed. Olivia, I'd rather you be honest with me. We can talk about these things. I know. It won't happen again. But it did happen again. More lies, increasingly elaborate, covering nights spent drinking at parties or in local parks. Olivia, always the perfect daughter, had discovered a talent for deception that rivaled her academic abilities. David remained largely oblivious, his demanding legal career keeping him insulated from the day-to-day shifts in their daughter's behavior. When Catherine voiced concerns, he reminded her of their own teenage years. The parties, the occasional beer, the boundary testing that seemed a universal rite of passage. She's going to experiment, he said. Better she does it now than when she's away at college. Catherine wanted to believe he was right. After all, Olivia's grades remained exceptional. She never missed swim practice. College acceptances poured in. By all external metrics, she was thriving. But motherly intuition told Catherine something different. She noticed how Olivia's eyes sometimes appeared vacant at breakfast, how she occasionally slurred words when returning from study sessions, how her vibrant daughter increasingly seemed to exist in two versions, the perfect achiever and someone darker, more reckless, emerging at the edges. Catherine had tried talking to Olivia directly. "Is everything okay, sweetheart? You've seemed different lately." Olivia had perfected her dismissive eye roll. "Just stressed about finals, Mom. Everyone is." "Are you drinking at these parties?" "Sometimes, yeah. Everyone does." Olivia had shrugged. "It's not a big deal." "How much is sometimes?" "Mom, seriously." "I'm handling it. I've never even been drunk." The lie had come smoothly, confidently. "Can we not do the interrogation thing? I've maintained a 4.0 GPA for 4 years. I think I've earned some trust." And there it was, Olivia's perfect academic record, wielded like a shield against further questioning. Catherine had retreated, uncertain whether her concerns were legitimate or merely overprotective parenting. What Catherine didn't know, what Olivia herself barely acknowledged, was how drinking had gradually transformed from occasional social activity to personal necessity. First, it was just at parties, then before parties to ease social anxiety, then after difficult exams to decompress, then on random weeknights to quiet her restless thoughts. Only Emma had witnessed the full progression, watching with increasing concern as her friend's relationship with alcohol evolved. "Maybe slow down?" Emma had suggested one night, as Olivia mixed vodka into her water bottle before a football game. "Why?" "I know exactly what I'm doing." Olivia had replied with the unearned confidence of adolescence. "I've got a system. I know my limits." But the system was fiction, and the limits were moving targets. What had begun as occasional fun had become something Olivia craved, something that felt increasingly necessary rather than recreational. The line between want to drink and need to drink had blurred, though she'd never have called it addiction. That word was for other people. People without her self-control, her academic success, her bright future. By spring of senior year, Olivia was drinking almost daily, hiding miniature bottles in her room, car, and locker. She'd become adept at appearing sober when necessary, at explaining away the occasional slip. Once, when Catherine found an empty vodka bottle in Olivia's trash, her daughter had claimed it belonged to a friend who feared her own parents' reaction. "I was just helping her out, Mom," Olivia had explained. "You'd have done the same for your friends." Catherine had almost believed her. Almost. 2 weeks before the fatal party, Olivia had her first serious blackout. She'd awakened in Michael's basement with no memory of the previous night's events. The experience had frightened her enough that she'd sworn off drinking for a week, a promise she kept for exactly 3 days before the familiar craving overwhelmed her resolve. The night she died, Olivia had arrived at Tyler's house already buzzed from drinks, consumed in the school parking lot. The whiskey shots had followed, then more whiskey, then the fatal decision to accept 2 unmarked pills from Tyler's father's medicine cabinet. Pills that, combined with alcohol, created a lethal cocktail her young body couldn't process. Her final conscious thought had been surprisingly lucid. "I think I've made a terrible mistake." But by then, alone in the bathroom with the door locked, it was too late to ask for help. The funeral was held in the school auditorium. Hundreds attended: students, teachers, parents, community members, shocked by the sudden loss of such a promising young life. Olivia's swim team formed an honor guard, each member carrying a single white rose. Her Northwestern acceptance letter was framed alongside her senior portrait. Catherine moved through the service in a fog of grief and disbelief, supported physically and emotionally by David, whose own guilt manifested as a rigid determination to be strong for his wife. They had barely spoken about that night, about the missed signs, about what they could have done differently. The pain was still too raw, the questions too numerous and devastating. After the service, Emma approached them hesitantly, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen. "Mrs. Bennett? Mr. Bennett? I need to tell you something," she said, voice trembling, "about Olivia." In the empty classroom where they found privacy, Emma revealed what she'd been too afraid to share before. The extent of Olivia's drinking, the progression she'd witnessed over the past year, her own failed attempts to intervene. "I should have told someone," Emma sobbed. "I was trying to be a good friend by keeping her secrets. But maybe if I'd told you." Catherine embraced the girl who had been her daughter's best friend since kindergarten. "It's not your fault, Emma. None of us saw how serious it was." But that wasn't entirely true. Catherine had seen signs. She'd simply failed to recognize their significance or trust her instincts enough to intervene decisively. And David had chosen comfortable denial over uncomfortable confrontation. Both choices, made with love but insufficient awareness, had contributed to the circumstances of their daughter's death. In the grief-filled months that followed, Catherine channeled her pain into action. She began researching teenage alcohol use, shocked to discover how common Olivia's pattern had been. She learned about the particular vulnerability of the adolescent brain to addiction, about how high-achieving students often flew under the radar despite dangerous drinking habits, about how high-functioning alcohol dependency could mask itself as typical teenage behavior. 6 months after Olivia's death, Catherine stood before the first meeting of Parents for Prevention, a support and education group she'd founded for families concerned about teen substance use. The school library was filled with parents from across the district, many of whom had known Olivia or had children who knew her. "I'm not here to lecture anyone," Catherine began, her voice steady despite the photograph of Olivia displayed on the screen behind her. "I'm here because I missed the signs that my daughter needed help, and I don't want any other parent to experience what our family has endured." She shared Olivia's story honestly, not just the public narrative of a tragic accident, but the fuller truth of a gradual progression from experimentation to dependency. She described the warning signs she'd noticed but misinterpreted, the conversations she'd started but failed to pursue, the times she'd chosen to believe convenient lies rather than confront uncomfortable truths. Our teenagers are under unprecedented pressure, Catherine explained. Academic excellence, athletic achievement, social media perfection, college admissions. They're dealing with adult-level stress without adult-level coping skills. For some like Olivia, alcohol becomes a solution to that pressure, and our culture normalizes it to such an extent that we often miss the danger until it's too late. David, who had initially resisted Catherine's public approach to their private grief, now stood beside her. In the months since losing Olivia, he had confronted his own relationship with alcohol, the nightly scotch that had gradually increased from 1 glass to 3, the business lunches that inevitably included multiple drinks, his reflexive defense of drinking as a normal stress reliever. I modeled the wrong relationship with alcohol, he admitted to the hushed room. Without meaning to, without even realizing it, I showed my daughter that drinking was how adults handled stress. That's a legacy I have to live with. Together, the Bennetts worked with school administrators to implement new education programs, not the ineffective "just say no" campaigns of the past, but honest discussions about brain development, addiction vulnerability, and healthy coping mechanisms. They advocated for a community-wide approach, recognizing that no single program or conversation could address the complex factors driving teenage drinking. At Emma's suggestion, they created a peer support group where students could discuss substance use honestly, without judgment or automatic parental notification. The Olivia's Friends program quickly became a safe space for teenagers struggling with their own or friends' alcohol issues. On what would have been Olivia's 19th birthday, the day she would have completed her freshman year at Northwestern, Catherine visited the memorial bench installed outside the school's aquatic center. She placed fresh flowers beside the small plaque that read, "Olivia Bennett, swimmer, scholar, friend. Remember her by looking beneath the surface." As she sat in contemplation, a young sophomore approached hesitantly. "Mrs. Bennett, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to thank you. The program you started, it helped me realize I was using alcohol in a really bad way. I've been sober for 2 months now." Catherine blinked back tears as she made room on the bench. "Would you like to tell me about it?" The girl nodded, settling beside her. As she began to speak, Catherine recognized in her story the same patterns she'd missed in Olivia. The same pressures, the same progression, the same attempts to maintain a perfect facade while crumbling inside. But this story had a different trajectory. This girl had found help before reaching the point of no return. This time, someone had recognized the signs, had asked the difficult questions, had refused to accept the convenient explanations. It wasn't enough to bring Olivia back. Nothing ever would be. But as Catherine listened to this young life turning toward recovery rather than tragedy, she felt something like purpose emerging from her grief, a bittersweet legacy from the daughter whose last toast had come far too soon. As darkness fell and they prepared to leave, Catherine looked at the girl beside her, alive, healing, with possibilities still ahead. And whispered words meant not just for her, but for Olivia and all the other teenagers navigating the treacherous waters of adolescence and alcohol. Your life is worth more than any temporary escape. Remember that. Always remember that.